You're my heartbeat, my silent drum that is kicking me till I'm numb. I wanna feel the love that James Brown did when he got standing ovations on his gig. I wanna feel free like a bird in the sky when he opened his wings to fly on by to the beat of my silent drum that is kicking me till I'm numb. I wanna feel free like a bird in the sky when he opened his wings and fly on by to the beat of a silent drum that is kicking me till I'm numb. Oh. You're my heartbeat, my silent drum that's kicking me till I'm numb. I wanna feel the love that James Brown did when he got standing ovations on his gig. I wanna feel free like a bird in the sky when he opened his wings and fly on by to the beat of my silent drum that is kicking me till I'm numb. Oh. You're my heartbeat, my silent drum that's kicking me till I'm numb. I wanna feel the love that James Brown did when he got standing ovations on his gig. I wanna feel free like a bird in the sky when he opened his wings to fly on by to the beat of the silent drum that's kicking me till I'm numb.
And there we go. Still some work to be done on the whole intro and the whole starting this thing, but we're getting there. We're definitely getting there. And I just realized that I need to rethink the whole schedule, because today it seems like I missed some things. I thought I was really smart. I thought that by having it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I would have a lot of time to go in between and stuff, but I actually have some responsibilities that I have to do, which made me almost miss it already today, the first day. So maybe we'll have to do it Tuesday and Thursdays, but we're going to have to see. Now, this channel kind of shifted. Like, the entire thing took a different path just a few days ago. because YouTube is definitely the place to be if you want to have something of a concurrent thing that is going to be at one place. At one place where everyone can find it for all perpetuity in future. We have no idea if my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren are watching this, right? So we're going to put this into a formula that hopefully will make sense. Now, in order for me to unpack everything that I know, which is basically the goal of this, try to give everyone who wants something of a different perspective a good, tangible way of understanding. I'm going to try to do this the best way I can. And the best way I could figure out for the first one is just explaining what I see of what I know so far of our universe, which is quite different from what I was taught in school. Because in school you get taught that you have this big place of nothing, right? There's nothing out there, and there's nothing really interesting, and we're just a little speck of ants running around on a rock, just dangling in space, right? It's not that dramatic, but not far from it either. So the way I've seen it, as I've learned these things, is that it's so much more interactive. And that I made a video today that I haven't uploaded about synchronicities and how these things just keep blowing my mind, and how I'm just baffled by the things that could happen. The things that is happening consistently now with every day is just a new adventure, right? But how is that possible? How is that possible? So the first thing I always do when I ask people about what do you know about you? What do you know about what you're capable of? And what do you know about the world that you're in, right? In order to basically provide a paradigm shift, to see things from a different angle, it needs to be understood in a way that actually makes sense. So I say that picture fish. Two fish swimming along the ocean floor, right? They meet another fish, an older fish, a wise fish. And this fish asks them, how's the water? Now they just look at each other stupidly, like, okay, what is he on about? It's fine, I guess, right? And they continue on their way, and then they turn to each other and they ask, what the fuck is water? We are kind of those fish, if you want to see it that way. We're in this world that is capsulated. It's engulfed, and it's wrapped around this energy that has been here forever. We can test this just by turning on our TV, and if we don't have any signals coming in, we're just going to see snow on the screen, right? There's something there. We also know by just measuring this, there is something there. And they actually put this out to be, 5.83 hertz. The Schumann resonance is one of those fundamental frequencies that is always going to be there. Always. I always say that it's kind of arrogant of humans to think that we can create something that is capable of taking signals from somewhere else and putting that on a screen and turning those wireless things into a picture with sound that makes sense. Why aren't we able to do that, right? So for me to actually explain why we are able to do that, a lot of backstory needs to be filled in. And that's where this show has come in. I want to go and structure this in a way where you can basically go back and see the videos for what they are, so that you can get an understanding for why I think the way I do. Now, with the energy being all over the place, right? You are a part of it, whether you like it or not. Some people would like to just disregard this as just woo-woo. They will say that, life is about walking out of my door in the morning, going to work, going to my job, spending my day there, coming back, maybe sit down, take a beer, whatever, watch some TV, and then in the weekends, I like to go party. There's a lot more. Like I'm saying the things I'm saying because I've had conversations with people who's doing this, and they're sitting in the pub, and I don't have any problem with that. What I have a little issue with is when they complain, when they say that I wish I did this, but they don't. I have been doing the same thing for 50 years, and nothing has ever changed, and that is what I want to do. But they complain about what they have when the universe is capable of doing so much more, right? All of this comes back to the whole freedom aspect of us being able to do way more than most people tell us that we are able to do when we grow up and when we get taught how to live life from those who's raising us, those who's teaching us, those who's bringing us into this world and trying to show us the ropes, right? So what if I told you that the universe is not really empty? What if I told you that it was full? And it actually follows some physics that just came onto the field a few decades ago. That hasn't been really mainstream for a long time. And right now, mainstream science has a big issue in actually just accepting the fact that there's more. I would say that if you have studied something for 60 years, 70 years, 80 years, I guess the people on top in science, it's probably there for a reason. They have a lot of experience within what we have been taught. So they have a big issue with just shifting that entire thing back to something that they really don't know how to measure. How do you measure love? How do you measure compassion? Where are your thoughts when you're not thinking about them? All these things that people ask in very funny ways. And we don't know. We have no idea. Consciousness is huge, but is it part of the universe? That's the question, right? Is it part of something else than just us? So, picture it as full. See the universe as just full of information. And the reason I want you to see it as full of information is because when you basically zoom in on yourself, on you, 1 billion times, you're going to see energy. You're just going to see straight through you, but you can measure the energy. Within the subatomic particles, they say that they have found the subatomic fluctuations that is in a vacuum on a Planck scale. It's basically tiny, 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 tiny vibrations. Now with this, these tiny vibrations is kind of interesting because they give out some energy as well as absorbing all other kinds of energy. So they're what's known as a black body. It takes in everything and it absorbs everything. And it just gives out some of its own. So we're basically, in this perspective, we're the same as black holes. We're the tiny, 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 tiny black holes. Just the composition of huge black holes. It's weird, I know. This is why this needs a series, because it's going to take a long time for me to articulate myself in a way that's going to make sense for a lot of people, right? And the more we do this, the easier it's going to become. And we're going to delve into each specific concept as we go. Hello, Vanessa. Good to see you. So, if we are energy, and we're just these tiny fluctuations, we are emitting this energy, right? So if everything in the universe is energy, and we can interact with that, how can we interact with it? What is the actual process behind us interacting with something that we can't see? So when I have explained this, just view your universe as full instead of empty. I go into the journey of the thought, which is, in my opinion, the most interesting part of it all. Because when you see this and when you think in these frameworks, I guess you see the world differently. Something opens up and you start to see things that you normally didn't see. Sorry, I feel like my mouth is drying up. It's kind of hard to be on live and trying to explain these concepts. But we're going to do a good shot. When your thoughts are not in use, where are they? That's a good question. Honestly, we don't really know. But there is a theory. Because of near-death experiences and because of all these things that people have had before they die, when they have been on the operating table in a coma, when they have been on the verge of passing over, basically. Some people have actually seen this in a psychedelic trip. They leave their body. It's astral projection, right? Something within them leaves their physical body. So with that, we know that we're not anchored in our bodies. We know that our minds is not necessarily our body. There are many case studies where people have been operated on. They have been clinically dead as they have been operating on their brains. And they're able to see over the shoulder of their doctor operating on them. And they can tell them after the operation what kind of a tool they used, the name of the tool, what they talked about, how things looked, how they freaked out when they hit something they shouldn't have hit during the operation, things that, they should not have known. And they explain this in a way that just like, okay, so you were there, right? And it gets better. People who have died in an accident or seen the other side, they have seen their loved ones, they have seen something that they couldn't explain. And so when they come back, they have a different perspective, because now death is not a limiting belief. Now death is just the turning of the page, the next chapter. It's something that is not to be feared because it's just a part of us. We don't know what death is. But death is as mysterious as consciousness. And if consciousness could be part of this energy and we can interact with that, interesting, right? So now, let's say that our thoughts is stored outside of our bodies, because our consciousness could go outside of our bodies. So see this as quantum computing. When they store something in quantum computing, it doesn't get, it's not stored in the device. It's stored around the device, in the molecules around it, which is pretty interesting. We're going to delve deeper into that too, because the more I study it and teach it, the more I'm going to learn it, which is why I love this journey. So, when you have a thought, you snag it out of this field, this space of inactivity, and it goes into your brain, and it travels along until it hits your hypothalamus. Your hypothalamus is basically a factory, right? It will take out ingredients of amino acids and proteins and create something tangible. Now, this is also just a theory, so just don't hate me for not agreeing with me. But this makes a lot of sense in my head. It takes these amino acids and proteins and it creates something called a neuropeptide. The neuropeptide can be viewed as a key. So this key gets shot out of the hypothalamus and look for a lock, a cell. Now a cell does three things. It shits, it eats, and it multiplies, right? So when this cell gets hit by the neuropeptide or the key, it will get the emotion that key had. That key had the emotion that the thought had. So if you were scared as you had the thought, that key will be scared. Now that cell will be scared. And then it multiplies and it overwhelms your body. It's now everywhere in your body. So you're feeling really scared. You're feeling like sweat dripping from your forehead. You're feeling like everything is just a mess. You're feeling like everything just went to crap. Just because you had a thought that carried its way through your system. Now, it doesn't stop there. That's what's really interesting, because if we view the universe as full, there is something between us and everything else, something connecting everything else. And if we look at the Schumann resonance, the 5.83 hertz, this is everywhere. Now, sound, video, everything travels on frequencies, right? And so does emotions, if we want to take this science seriously. So if you're fearful, your heart is like a transmitter. And your heart deserves a complete series on its own, because that is some mystical shit. Your heart is capable of doing the most amazing things. And this is why I love quantum physics, the emotional part. Because when you're overwhelmed by fear, you will project that. People will feel that. People will see you and they like, oh, I sense something is off with you, right? And you will vibe on this level. You will go into a room and people can pick up on your energy. They might not be able to explain why they feel this way, but you come in there and you're so scared that you're just projecting your energy all over the place. Now picture if this energy was positive. Like if you're in a football stadium and this team just makes a goal and everyone goes up in an uproar and all of a sudden you feel boosted, you feel like energized, you feel amazing. That's the same thing. You had a thought that came with an association of you viewing what happened, and you feel what's happening in the football stadium, and now your body is basically being fueled by this energy and you're vibrating and projecting that out. it's addictive. If you feel a certain way, over a long time, you're spreading that. It's like a virus, but it could be used for bad and good. But let's talk about why your heart is actually doing this, because it's kind of weird, right? Have you heard of the things when people get a transplant, like a heart transplant, and all of a sudden they start talking in a different way, or they start walking in a different way? All of a sudden they like different foods that they really didn't like before. Like this one story in particular is really interesting to me. And I might mess up the ages, but that's of no importance. So let's take a 8-year-old girl who dies. The 8-year-old girl donates her heart to a 10-year-old girl. All of a sudden, that 10-year-old starts to have these horrible nightmares. These horrific nightmares because she has this new heart. She doesn't know it at the time, but it happened as she got that new heart. Now her mother, of course, she gets worried, so she takes her to a psychiatrist. And this professional sees this and wants to figure out why, right? So he's like, okay, this is way beyond my understanding. I need to take you to the cops and let's do a sketch of this, because clearly you have a lot of information in that head, and clearly there's something that we can figure out because of this. So they took her to a police sketch artist and they sketched out her face, or the face that she saw in the dream. This was so detailed, and it had a name. So they put the name and the face out to an APB, and they found the person. They gave him the details that the girl had given them from the dream, and he confessed to killing the 8-year-old girl. So that proves that our hearts have memories. And of course, this just made us go really deep into what our hearts really are. So they started to see that it doesn't only have memories, it has 40,000 brain cells, neurons, on the heart. They call this the heart brain, the little heart brain. And we have found that the heart is capable of way more than we thought. It might be in our bodies as like the system that runs us physically, but it works in unison with our brains. So if you have a thought, your heart does the tum tum tum. Your heart does the job of actually making you feel the thought. It makes it rationalized. Like it makes sense of it all. You know, they say follow your heart. They say your heart knows. Your heart wants what your heart wants. All that stuff, right? There's a reason. These are things that we have been doing for years, but now we're actually able to see why. We can actually measure this, and that's pretty interesting. So, if your heart has this little engine and it communicates, it transmits these waves of your emotions, then if you view a frequency, let's say that you're fearful, or you have anxiety, or you're scared, or you're angry, or you're jealous, or like a negative emotion, those move very differently than higher vibrations, right? So it won't necessarily travel as far. That's how I view it. If you want to have something in your life, you want to have something that is actually going to travel, if that makes sense. And if it doesn't, I'm hopefully going to get to that. But if you're feeling sad, if you're going around and you're feeling pity, and you're feeling like this is not what you want, and you're feeling like you want more, something is wrong, you're always feeling like, oh, Monday again, or things are just happening to you and that's just typically your luck, or you are just you and you're not happy with yourself. So, what you gonna do, right? If you're stuck in that reality, you are going to project that emotion. And you're going to start to pick up all these things that is associated to that emotion. We're going to talk about something called the reticular activating system when we're talking about manifesting. But right now, let's just talk about the basics of how this works in the 30,000-foot view of the universe. So, your heart communicates. And if you are loving, if you're walking around feeling love, and we see this human resonance as the vehicle for us to travel on, to astral project on, to talk to and interact with everything else because of our high vibing emotions, magic starts to happen. And in physics, they say that energy attracts more of the same. So if you have love, if you experience gratitude, if you have compassion and care, you are going to see things differently because of the reticular activating system. And you're going to attract things differently because you're going to see things for the first time. You're going to see things in opportunity instead of challenge. You're going to see things that is going to propel you to your vision of the future instead of keeping you in the reality that you don't want. You're going to see things that is going to make sense and feel aligned instead of you feeling like this happens to you. You know, it's all about perspective. We have the two sides of the same coin. People could see rain as a bad thing, or they can go out and feel the rain on their bodies, feeling good for being alive. You can have Monday as, oh, it's Monday again. Or you can see Monday as Monday, new week, new opportunities, right? Because we have the capability to change at any given second. And if we see the universe as for what it is, if we see the universe for the magic that it is, for why, like, the more I understand about the concepts about this, like the law of attraction or the electromagnetic frequencies or all of these things of the heart and the bodies and how we are communicating with each other and the universe and everything, the more blown away I get. And to be really, like, just to leave you on a cliffhanger on that whole universe thing, just to prove to you that there is something here that we need to really address. 9/11. You know, before they released the news that New York was hit and was under a terrorist attack, something happened. Something pretty substantial happened. This went out at 9 a.m.-ish US time, right? And as the world got news of the attacks, there was a few satellites that picked up something in the electromagnetic field on the Earth. You saw this happening. Boop! Which is pretty interesting. That means that our collective horror of seeing what happened actually impacted the global electromagnetic field. Anyone could check this out, and it's going to be in the show notes. That is going to be on Patreon. That I'm going to have to go really deep on. But if you think about that, just that fact alone is really interesting, right? What's even more interesting is that it happened before the planes actually hit. So in some ways, we were seeing the future. We were feeling the future. Something happened and we were like, what's going on, right? And there's all of these case studies that I will research properly and have an episode just on the case studies of people sensing the future. But that is one very, very specific event that anyone can check out to see that something happened with our global consciousness as this happened. So, I shouldn't read the chat, because if I read the chat, I'm falling out of my loop. But it's good to see you. They had this other experiment where they had a bunch of meditators sitting in a group and meditating for peace in a specific part of the city, in Washington, I believe. This was during a crime height. Like, they knew that crime was on an all-time high, and this was the season for crime. So there was going to be a lot of crime. As they did this, the crime decreased. The percentage was pretty substantial, but I don't know what the percentage was right now. The thing is, it happened during the meditation exercise. And they saw that before, during, and after, there was very specific data that they could pinpoint that there was something there that influenced the rest. Now, how is that possible? The way I see it, the only way that I can see it, is that if we have something of an intention in our brains, and we go in with that intention of healing and loving and compassion, we can actually project feelings or frequencies that is going to interact with the world around us. Using the frequencies of the Schumann resonance or the subatomic particles, the quantum fluctuations in a flux on a vacuum on a Planck scale. Basically, just the energy of the tiniest molecule that we can interact with. And by tapping into this superpower, we are able to directly manifest things. I have manifested things that I really didn't know I manifested. I didn't know that I was doing it until I was really seeing it. And then I was like, okay, I need to understand why. So there's a lot to unpack in the universe and how this works. But I can assure you that if I do my job correctly, you're going to see the world completely different. Did you know that your plants listen to you? That they feel you? 𝐓𝐡𝐞, that's the name that you should check out if you don't believe me. Because he was a lie detector expert, right? And he had a school. He was working for the CIA and he started a lie detecting school. In this school, he was basically teaching people how to use a lie detector and how to fool it. So he was sitting in his office one day and thinking, how long would it take for the plant to suck up water if I water it? He did so. And he put some probes in on the stem. And as the water rised, he could see the output on the lie detector not really portraying what he wanted. It flatlined, right? So he thought, how can I make this plant do what I want? He started to think, maybe I should go and get some matches and burn it. So as he had the thought, the lie detector started to go like this. It went haywire. That was weird. So he started to think, maybe there was something about that. Why did the plant just react? Was that my thought? He tried it again. Same thing. But the more he did it, the more he saw that the plant was calling his bluff. These are things that anyone can check out, by the way. I know it sounds pretty weird, but it kind of builds upon the whole concept that there is something that we don't see that is there as a communication vehicle for us to interact with the universe. So he brought in new people and they started to experiment. And he had a blast. He did a lot of experiments with other people. It did the same thing. What is the word I'm trying to say? Supposedly. Because I can't say that I wasn't there. I don't know. But you know, there are, like, if you talk to your plant and do these experiments, you can see that the plant is actually reacting differently if you talk to it. Which is weird. But I love it. It's kind of like you have sentient life around you. Just not as sentient as we are, right? But 𝐓𝐡𝐞 was cleaning out his coffee mug. Or his coffee... That. He was cleaning it out, and he was using boiling water. As he was pouring this boiling water into the sink, something happened. The lie detector went haywire before he started to pour this in. Almost like before the 9/11 attacks hit, and the global community reacted to the electromagnetic field. So he thought, okay, that was weird. He swabbed the sink because he was a scientist, right? And he found living bacteria down there. That opened a whole bunch of new questions. So he tested it on yogurt, on sperm, on blood, a whole lot of stuff. He put people in different rooms, one being hooked up to a TV, one being hooked up to nothing. They were told to think about each other, right? And as the person who was watching the TV saw something traumatic, something horrific, the other person had the same reaction as the dude watching the TV. Meaning that there was something there that communicated between them. Again, proof that there's something that we don't understand yet completely. That is enabling us to communicate across distances, to see things, to feel things that we don't really understand, and to remote view. I have a meditation that is set to remote view stuff, and it's weird, but we're going to get to that. The other thing is a dude called Masaru Emoto. He was I'm not sure if he's Japanese, but he's a scientist who figured that water had capabilities, special powers. And if you watch Frozen 2, I love that movie, by the way, you're going to see something interesting. Olaf, the snowman, he says a few times, water has memories, right? And I was like, ooh, they're touching on something pretty big now. Where are they going with this? Masaru Emoto figured that if you have water in a cup and you fed this positivity, blessings, you could see that the water would form beautiful snowflake crystals. And he could check this out as he froze them, flash froze them, and checked them out under a microscope. The same with the negative. That had effects too. When he had negative emotions and bad thoughts, the water took on a sickly form. Again, this is not 100% proven. The mainstream science is still pretty, no, this is not true. But then again, they did promote tobacco not that far ago, so it's interesting because we are like 75% water, and we are really conducing. Yeah. And when you sit and you put your feet barefoot on the ground and you have a voltmeter hooked up to you, you can actually check that you are transmitting energy. You can check how much energy on the voltmeter. So we have something in us that we don't really appreciate. Grounding is not something that they teach at all, but we are mostly water, and that is mostly interactive with the world, that we are sensing the world. And we don't really pay much attention to those senses. Like, if you are sad, if you are depressed, how many people think about why, instead of just feeling that in the moment and thinking about why and how that might not be really true, right? Because the water in us, the whole overwhelm of the senses and the cells, they became overwhelmed because of the thought that you had. And if you had one thought, then you could just put in another thought, right? All this is really complex, and it's hard to explain with the whole universe and then going into feelings and thoughts and emotions, but it's all the same thing. Like, we have been seeing the world in separated sciences, taking geology and biology and all these other ologies as separate entities instead of seeing it as one big whole. As we are part of the nature, we are part of all this, right? So why should we be anything less than just miracles walking around on the earth? So as you have these thoughts, you can change them. And we're going to take entire episodes on how to change a thought, how to reframe thoughts, because just thinking positive is not going to work a lot. It's not. But knowing about the science that supports the universe being more, being a expansion of yourself. You know, I'm not sure if the name was John Wheeler, but he was a contemporary of Einstein, right? Einstein, he didn't like the fact that there was things he called spooky actions at a distance. This was quantum entanglement, where stuff could be at two places at once, where he could think something and something else would happen on the other side of the world. Something that he couldn't really control, he couldn't measure, he could just think and then something happened. He did not like that. He also didn't think that black holes existed, but then they found them after his death, because he saw that there was something, just as these things, right? John Wheeler, if that is his name, sorry if it's wrong, he said that we are basically just the universe observing ourselves. Actually, I think that was Feynman? Richard Feynman? I'm not sure. That we are the creatives of our universe. If we keep looking into the distance to find something, we are going to find something because we put into the intention that there is something to be found. So if we look into the macro, we're going to find something. If we look into the micro, we're going to find something. It's like the Higgs boson, the God particle, right? We didn't think it was there, but we thought it was there. We had no idea, but the more we looked, the more we found. All of a sudden, we found something that resonated, that was fitting the description of what we were looking for, which means that we might be creating as we're looking. These are things that is pretty substantial, because if we have created most of the things in our world, everything that you see came from a thought. This came from a thought, that came from a thought, this screen came from a thought, everything came from a thought, an idea, right? So it started with something intangible, and then we created it. Now, sure, finding the Higgs boson or finding some distant exoplanet is not the same as putting something into the world because you had the idea, but it just shows that we are something pretty interesting. We are something pretty unique. We are the only species that we know of that can picture our own death, which sounds morbid, but it's actually a superpower, because you can imprint these urgencies, these personal urgencies to do something worthwhile, to do something that is going to make your life count, to be fulfilled, to feel like you're living for something. If you know you're going to die, if I told you that you're going to die in 2 days, and I said that there is nothing holding you back, you can do whatever you want, then you would damn well do whatever you wanted. But it's interesting to think what you would actually do. Let's say I gave you 6 months and you had all the money that you'd ever need. What would you spend your time doing? I like to take these exercises just to gauge my current view of things, right? Because if I know that I'm part of this universe in a way that I previously did not think I was. Previously, I thought I was just a human walking the planet, nothing more. The more I've learned, the more I see that there is so much more. And so I have to make the most out of the time that I have here. Right? And so I picture my death. I see, what are they going to say about me? Was I a talker or a doer? Who's there? How am I being cremated? Because I'm going to be burned in a dinghy. I want to be like a proper Viking funeral, but I have to do something that is going to be worth that. So that gives me purpose. That gives me the input. No, what is that? The purpose of doing something. That just gives me the gift of doing something of fulfillment to my life and the service of others in a way where I love and care and feel compassionate and grateful for everything. Just high vibing thoughts, because I know that they are traveling and they're coming back. And the more I do this, the more I think about these things, the more I act in the world in a way that is going to support others, the more I get back. And I'm blown away. As I said, the synchronicities. Completely mind blown. I'm going to upload a video on that specifically, but there's so much more. There's so much, which is why we're here on YouTube right now, because I need to create a series. This is the 30,000 foot view to get a very rough overview over where we're going, right? I'm sorry, I think this might have been a little overwhelming to some of you, but I think that the more we do this, and the way I do things is imperfect action. I do things, I learn as I go, I build the plane in the air, and then I just develop as I go. As long as I can keep consistent with that, I know that I'm going to create something that is in my mind. I'm going to get to the point where I see this thing that I had in mind, and it's going to be what I wanted it to be. And for this, I want this to be the place where people can go and just see a video and get a aha or a huh moment. Because these are huge things. Near-death experiences, not being what we're being told. I don't know who told me anything about near-death experiences, but psychedelics, the universe, electromagnetic fields, astral projection, remote viewing, remote healing, manifestation. Dude, I'm going into astrology somewhat now, because it's also just ancient history, ancient tools that humans have used, right? And it has so much interesting stuff in it. So I want to be educated on that. I want to be learned. So I'm going to go through that and learn whatever I can to see if there's something that is going to give me one brick of information in my foundation so that I can make myself more educated and see things differently and come from a point of knowing instead of thinking, right? Because right now, I feel like I'm thinking a lot. I feel like I assume things are like this, but I can't prove it. So I experience it. And I think this had some meaning to it. And I do it more. And then it's a constant journey. A constant student of life. And I fell in love with this journey. I want to share that with you. So the fact that you're here, I love that. There is so much more to come. But I have to figure out the schedules. I think maybe Tuesday and Thursday. And then do something smart in between. But shout out in the comments. What do you think? What do you think about this? Do you have questions? What do you think when I say that you are the creator of your universe in ways that you could not even fathom? because I have on video things that happened as I was talking about them. Like, I'm manifesting like crazy these days, and I'm starting to feel kind of anxious, because if I can do this now, how is my life going to look like in 5 years? What is this going to be in 5 years? I have no idea. But we're going to talk about the opportunities that we all have. We're going to talk about the technology that we can all use. We're going to talk about the thoughts that we all are capable of having. Intrigued. Vanessa, I knew you would be intrigued, because you too. I'm going to also have the community on here to try to get everyone to be a tribe, a true tribe. Take some people on and talk to them and get their perspective, ask some questions, going back and forth, building upon each other's perspectives, just to grow as humans, because that is what it is about, isn't it? Growing and becoming more. Change is the only constant. So if you're repeating the same year and you've been doing that for years, now is the time to see what you're capable of and take your destiny by the gender-neutral balls. Love it. I had a feeling you would love that too. This is going to change everything for what we've had so far, because I've been building so much on the back end. I've been building so much around everything. It has been segmented. Now we are at the place where we can have things in one place, build it out properly, and then we're going to be able to serve a lot of more people. I mean, YouTube is the place to go for everything. I guess when you want to check out anything, you're going to search Google. And if there's a video, you're probably going to check out that video. So I have no idea why I haven't been on YouTube before, but there was a journey involved. I had to learn some stuff in order to get to this place. And now I'm going back to the streaming. I'm going to go back. We're going to create interactive streams. We're going to have some amazing giveaways and events, and it's going to be amazing. Basically bring back the glory days, and I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you are too. If you like this, I'm going to do the best job I can to research the episodes before I do them, and then do show notes that I'm going to create and put in the Patreon, because I also need to eat, and this is the way I can see this as a mutually beneficial thing, where you support the stream, I try to give everything that I can to you, and we have this back and forth, and it's a thing of beauty. So if you want to support the stream, patreon.com/thefmlproject. The link is down in the description below, and more info to come. I think I'm gonna have to stream tomorrow too, because even though I said I was gonna do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I messed that up. If I'm gonna do Tuesday and Thursday, I have to do it tomorrow too. But tomorrow I'm gonna be more prepared. I promise. Thank you so much for being here. Like, comment, share, subscribe. It helps a lot with the algorithm. Trust me. I'm going to teach you about the algorithm, by the way, on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. I'm going to teach you about the algorithm and how you can use that to further your message and to bring your magic into the world. But know that a subscription and a like, subscribing a channel does a lot, and liking does a whole lot. Make YouTube like us. Have a fantastic day. I love you. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.